Hello and welcome to another episode of AusComX show. I'm here with Shaden. Wrong way. There we go, Shaden.
Hello.
And we are here to talk to Chris Wood about what he's up to at the moment. But before we do that, I just wanted to announce the shows we have this week. We've got Let's Make a Comic Book tomorrow night. That's the same time as this show, 7:30, depending where you are, of course, Australian Eastern Standard Time. Should always say that in case someone in America goes Eastern Standard. I might be on that show. We're having troubles filling the third spot. So if you want to be the third spot, let me know. If I can't find someone, it's me. It comes down to me. So I might be on the show drawing. I'll be on the show drawing sometime, but it might force me to do it tomorrow. Anyway, Drink and Draw. It's the Drink and Draw off-week crew, and we are doing Shazam. So get your art in. I should probably put that up where you send your art. There it is. So send your art to comx.show/art, and well, not send it to there. Sorry, go there and there's a form. Submit your art. Submit all the information we need. Most of that information is so that we can share it to the right places on other social medias, and credit you. That's what I'm looking for. And the other thing is, I and Kez are going to the Sci-Fi and Fantasy Fair here in Brisbane at the UQ campus on Saturday. We'll be there from 10 till 4. Come and meet us. Come buy some comics. We are taking not just ComX Studio, we are taking the entire shop, all 100-ish comics. 100 titles, I should say, because there's multiples of each title. So we'll be taking the whole thing with us. And yeah, so come meet us. Come buy some great Australian comics. But yeah, enough of that nonsense. Let's start the show and meet up with Chris. And I need to get on the right screen to do that. Let's go.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, how you going?
Really well. How are you? So good to have you back on the show.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I love to be back. I mean, I love this show, as you guys know. Big fan of what you guys do over there. I think I was on a show not long ago, wasn't I, Sis? Which turned out really well.
About a year ago, I reckon.
This one,
I did one the other week, I think.
You were on the drawing one. Let's make
that's the one. Yes, I was on the drawing one, and when I remember, because I watched it back a little bit, and it was a great show, by the way, but you know, when I used my iPad, so the angle for the whole time was like this, which is not very flattering, so I'm trying to get a really high shot here, trying to make it a little more appealing for people. But yeah, I think we did a show, Shaden, about a year ago, to talk a little bit, and it was a blast. And yeah, I'm happy to be back and talking about all the projects we've got going on. And yeah.
Yeah, because I think last time we were actually kind of hinting towards some of one of your projects that we'll be talking about tonight. We'll be talking about 2 projects, which is really exciting. But for those who probably don't know you, give us a little bit of a spiel about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm based in Perth, WA. Actually, at the moment, I'm in Bunbury, which is like the second city in WA, so even more remote from everybody else in Australia. Yeah, so I'm an artist. I'm full-time at the moment. Lucky to be full-time. I do comics, cartoons, like illustration projects. Recently, this year, I joined an agency, Solid Lines, which is like within the Jackie Winter umbrella, and it's been a blast. I've been able to work on some things that I haven't really worked on before. I did like a magazine illustration, which is like something I've like really wanted to do for a long time. And yeah, it's been a crazy year. But I've been working hard on 2 comics, Coffee Table, which I've talked about before, but also Dreamwalker, which I'm kind of like, I think I kind of talked about a little bit and like showed the teaser that we had. Kind of here to talk about a little bit more in depth. And Yeah, there's a page on the side there, a couple of pages. So yeah, really keen to just sort of chat and like talk
Yeah.
shop and talk about those projects, and also
Absolutely. It definitely sounds like since last time we talked, you've been really busy. Obviously, next to me showcases a few of your projects that you've been what you've been doing recently. So let's jump into one of your major projects that you've been doing recently, which is Dreamwalker. Can you give us a little bit of an insight about what it is that you've been doing with that project?
Yeah, so Dreamwalker. So Dreamwalker is like the second book expanding the series within the Digiverse, which is kind of like Scott Wilson, who's like the creator, writer extraordinaire. Like his sort of like he's kind of the brainchild behind that. And that kind of runs through like Gestalt as well. So we've got Wolfgang from Gestalt, who's like the editor on that. And for this book in particular, we've got Molly Hunt, who is a pretty incredible artist within her own right, and also a really talented writer. And the reason she was brought on as well is because this book is, they're all, including myself, from the Kimberley, so up north, west of WA, and the character is from that location as well. And the main character is kind of like this, which is this woman named Mangela, a little bit in the past, and she is basically searching for her child that's taken from her, and she has to go through this huge adventure, space, sci-fi, action, and everything. Like, it's a crazy project. It's a big issue, the first issue, 32 pages, and I was able to have the opportunity to lay it out, pencil it, ink it, and color it as well. So it's a pretty amazing project, and the scope of it is insane. So yeah, it's a pretty crazy book.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe you told us that the coloring is kind of a new avenue for you. Is that correct? Can you tell us a little bit about what that has been like for you, that process?
Yeah, well, I am like a pencil inker, really, is what I focused on for a long time. And I kind of did color things. Like, I've colored a few covers that I've done. I also color like the little weekly cartoons I do as well, but nothing to this scope or scale. So it was a bit daunting. I was kind of confident I could do it, but also, like, because I'm a pencil and inker, I have strong opinions on coloring, and I'm actually quite like maybe not critical, but like I really know in my head like what I think looks good for colors. And sometimes I look at like books with like Marvel and DC, and I'm like, I don't know if I would have done that, or I don't know if that's the best way to approach coloring. So I really had to like put my money where my mouth is. I've had all these like kind of strong opinions that I don't have voiced too often, but just in my head, strong like things you like in comics. So I kind of had to like, yeah, put my money where my mouth is, and I think it worked out pretty well. I mean, now when people see the pages, they always talk about the coloring and they don't talk about the penciling and the inking. I'm like, no, I did it too. I overshadowed myself too well. But yeah, no, it's been a blast. But also it's been interesting, kind of like coming up with a streamlined procedure for doing coloring. Rather than having like 100 layers, like how do I actually just make it as efficient as possible? Because I'm under it's intense deadlines. So being able to finding that journey has been interesting, like doing a bit of research on coloring. And now I've got to the point where, yeah, I don't have sprawling files of like a billion layers, which I had in the past before this project. So.
Wow, that sounds really, really interesting, and like how your kind of like growth mindset has like kind of developed. I am interested, however, Dreamwalker seems like a really large project. Can you give us a little bit of insight how long this has taken you?
Yeah, it's taken me a little bit. I think we talked about it for a while. Hey, everybody, how you going? Thanks for coming. Yeah, we were in talks for a while. I met Scott. Oh, geez, might have been let's see, year ago. Can't remember. Probably earlier than that. At PCAF, we had a good chat.
Oh, cool.
And we wanted to get something going. And this project he was sort of like building at a very foundational level. And I think you kind of had me in mind. And then I had a coffee table out. So I had my own creator and work with writer Kieran Alexander, who is a absolute genius writer. So I had that book out, and they saw that book, and they were kind of interested. And then I did a variant cover. That might have been end of last year. I did a variant cover for Dark Heart, which is like the first book in the Digiverse series, their expanded universe, which they really loved, which is awesome. And then we were kind of in talks of like scheduling how we're going to do this. And I think I started work January, February, March, might have been end of April, like mostly May. I got started on the book,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's going to come out this month. So, yeah.
What a huge credit to you to get all of that done. It seems like it was a really like interesting process. Can you maybe like walk us through, because obviously you've had so much input into this book with the coloring and everything else that you do, your strengths. Yeah, can you give us a little bit of a walkthrough into like how you actually created the pages as such? Like what is your step-by-step process?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I can talk a little bit about that. So essentially, like I like to work kind of pretty regimented in terms of like I'll do all the layouts for a book, and I'll do all the pencils, and I'll do all the inks, and then I'll do all the colors. I feel like it's easy. I try to make it. I don't like to jump around too much because each level of the process has like different skills. Like I feel like inking requires totally different skill set or mindset, I should say, than like laying out pages. So like laying out the pages is probably the most fun. I do that first, and it's kind of just like how interesting can I make it? And I tried to be pretty experimental in my layouts. The coffee table is very like, we've got panels and nothing goes outside the panels. But once it filters through, you'll see the third page of Dreamwalker colored. It's a lot more. There's a lot more going on. So that was a lot of fun. And then, so layouts, then pencils. Usually I go pencils and inks, but I kind of did like a hybrid of like, rather than doing kind of like meshing them together in a way as a bit of an experiment, because I feel like if I just sit down and pencil too tightly and then ink, it can kind of get a little bit like you lose a bit of energy. So I tried to, the pencils were a little looser and tried to like leave more space to do some drawing essentially. And I think I worked out pretty well. I did struggle a little bit early on in the project to like, okay, how am I going to do this? Like, what is the look that it's going to be? Because when I kind of pitched my involvement, when we kind of had those early foundational discussions, I said, look, I want this to be essentially able to stand up against like a superhero comic.
Yep, absolutely.
That an American publisher would power, so Marvel DC. So like, can it be in that vein? And then I had to think of like, how's it actually going to look? So I did struggle a little bit in that sense. Like the first like maybe week and a half, I had to make up that time. So then after I inked it, and at each level, like it gets the go ahead, right? Like you get the thumbs up or like things that want to change. Thankfully, there wasn't actually that many amendments or anything, or was good feedback, but nothing much. Like I didn't have to like redo a page, which is awesome. And then I went into the colors, and that was tough at the beginning. As you can see, coffee table there is like black and white, and like there's some gray values. But yeah, being able to color 32 pages was a little tough, and I had to sit down and just say, look, I'm just going to do some research, right? So I followed a lot of colorists that I enjoyed, and kind of got to the point where it's like I flat it all and then kind of flat it on one layer, just random ass colors, like, you know, just crazy colors. And then above it, the next layer is like kind of like the shadow, but it's like a dark purple, dark blue. And then I have another layer, which is just an empty layer. This is probably like super technical and
No, I love
make
it.
any sense, but I'm really like interested in, like, I didn't know how to really do this. So you've got the flats, then you've got like the base, then you've got a blank layer, right? And then I could just hide the blue and click like wand click each flat, put the blue back on, and then on the blank layer, color whatever the flat area was, and then I would just merge it down to blue, and then just do the whole thing again till eventually that blue layer was like a colored page, and it allowed me to like put those colors on, but then kind of have the shadows all kind of be the same, like from the same like color, like darker blue. And all the colors, like before that, I would just like pick random ass colors, like, you know, from the wheel. But I actually only colored using like maybe a dozen colors. I think I probably looked at a colorist YouTube and like zoomed in, like paused it, screen capped it, zoomed in on like a process video, and like took the colors that they used, and I would just color with those. So my red was like super red, and yeah, probably quite technical, but and I don't know if that made any sense, but like kind of being a game changer in terms of like the process of like, you know, color 2 pages a day sort of thing.
And I think we get a lot of like artists watching the show as well. So from one artist to another, it's always really interesting to hear people's processes, no matter how technical they are. If anybody does have any questions in the comments, make sure to send them in. You did touch on a little bit about your favorite stage in that process. I want to hear what you found was the most challenging step in that process.
Oh, the most challenging, as in the most challenging stage, like where it was the layouts, pencils? Yeah, probably the colors. I mean, I think in terms of, I'm not like trained, I didn't go to university or anything. And I feel like that's okay in terms of like basic drawing ability. Like, I don't think you need to. But in terms of like color theory, I feel like you do get a head start if you've gone through any sort of like training or like classes or anything. So I kind of just had to use my gut. And that was probably the most difficult. And then the most like second guessing on myself, I guess, which does take up a lot of time. It's very easy to, if I can just draw something, I'm like, I'm okay with it. But if I'm like drawing it, I'm like, oh, is this actually any good? That kind of really slows me down. But I think it worked out really well, and it's actually given me a lot of confidence, which, you know, I didn't have it colored. But yeah, probably coloring. But some panels, I mean, you know, it was difficult to, like, layouts is very much like problem solving for me. And it's like, okay, like even that first panel, it's like they wanted 4 seasons in one page, and kind of to show like the passage of time.
Yeah.
That in itself was like, okay, well, what's my approach to that? So, yeah, little things like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that page that you were just mentioning was executed really, really well. And like, I think it's so great to see Indigenous representation in such a cool comic, especially for like superheroes and stuff like that. And I think you put such a cool modern twist, especially with the colors. I mean, anybody who knows me, definitely a color girly. So seeing these pages, I was, ooh, okay, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think we discussed this a little bit last time. if your projects, I think we might have similar tastes in terms of colors. Like I really like that bright pink that I was able to use. And I actually took those cues on the second 2 pages from what was already established in Dark Heart. My version of like, I kind of like those like, pinks, kind of like almost neon pinks and stuff.
I think it's such a cool modern twist on it. And it's just really fresh to see, I think.
Just to build off that actually, just to come back to it, I mean, this was a really important book for me to do because my family is Aboriginal, but it's something that we kind of, because of like the history and stuff, not as close to it as we could have been if things had gone differently. And if I had this book or even just any of the Indigiverse books when I was a kid, it really would have probably changed my life and really made me feel I don't know what the word is, but a lot better growing up if I had these books. It's a superhero book, but it's Australian culture and people that kind of look like people that are from here. So I do think it's an important project, which is why I was very excited, daunted, but also like ultimately really committed to do the best work I can do. So I just wanted to get that in there.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm glad that you did touch on that as well. And I think that's really admirable and also congratulations that you're able to do that. I'm pretty sure younger Chris would be applauding you now. So, and I think so. Yeah, and I think it's really important for that kind of representation to be shown now, especially for younger generations as well. Leading on from that question, from that segment, I should say, was there anybody during this journey for you that has helped you along the way?
Yeah, in terms of my journey in general, or do you mean the project, or
journey in general, or the project, or if there's anyone in?
Yeah, I would like to talk. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would like to talk just in terms of the project. This is the immense faith that they had in me to kind of just like do the entire book. It's been amazing. That comes from Scott Wilson, who's the writer, and the script was really strong as well. I talk about a lot about my process, but also like it doesn't work if the script's not very good and the writing's not very good. There's a lot of really cool action scenes. There's a lot of subtext as well. It's really well done. That's Scott Wilson and Molly Hunt's script. So full praise to them. I've also got a really good editor on this project, Wolfgang Bilsma, who's kind of the editor of Gestalt, who are amazing. Having a good editor is really good. So, this is a pretty big moment for me, and just having the whole team be like onto it and really supportive, but also like we're really keen on making the best work we can. So, this has been immense. In terms of just my journey in general, I guess my family have been super supportive. There was a time where I was just working at Baskin Robbins and I was living at home, and rent's cheap. So that was that sort of support can't be taken. I have to acknowledge that 100%. There's been a few people that really believed in me, and had complete support, even when I said I was going to be a comic book artist all those years ago. Most people, I'll be honest, they didn't really think it was going to happen, or they didn't think like there was much of a career there, much of a future there. But I kind of did it anyway, and with the help of people in my family and friends as well along the way. So yeah, I mean, it's been huge, and also like just the opportunity to work. I've had some pretty crazy, just I think almost like 99% luck opportunities, like hooking up with Chris Badenoch for the horror comics we did was massive in terms of like, really testing whether or not I could do sit down and draw like for a living, like draw like 10 hours a day. That was huge, and we only met by chance at the local comic shop. Shout out to Keith from Quality Comics, who put my name forward to him. I kind of came in. I was so miserable, and I came in and I was like, I didn't have any work. I came into the comic book shop that I'd been to since I was a little kid, and I said, I'm an artist. Like, he knew me. But I didn't go around telling people, like, yeah, I want to do comics at that stage in my life. And I went to him and I said, I was even like moving out of, anyway, that's the whole thing. But I was kind of like, had no prospects. And I said to Keith, like, hey, dude, like, I'm an artist. Like, is there anyone making comics here? And he's like, oh, yeah, Chris Bannernock came in. He's doing horror comics about Harvey, which no longer exists, unfortunately. Like, oh, yeah, I'll pass on your email. And then I was getting paid doing comics with them, which was amazing. Tough experience. And then just random stuff like the cartoons. Like, I was out of work. Like, I lost my job at COVID when COVID happened. And I wasn't getting any benefits either. Like, the way it worked out, it was like I slipped through the cracks. Wasn't getting any like Centrelink or anything. And then I opened my email to like try and get something going through like Centrelink or something. And it was an email from Daniel Smith, who is a big person in my life, career-wise, and friend, who works at Regen Strategic, which is like a consultancy, but they have a lot of journalists, so they do a lot of cartoons. And then I was doing cartoons, so it's been insane. There's a few key moments where I'm like, this is so weird. Like, you know, how am I getting these opportunities? But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything in terms of like key people.
Yeah.
Kind of a little bit of a snapshot into like how crazy, like just craziness of, you know, things and like things lining up. You know, it could have gone the other way. I could still be working at basketball. So I'm immensely grateful. You know. So.
Absolutely. And I think that's such an I feel like it's always interesting hearing people, how they get their foot in the door into how they do their projects and how they get them started, pretty much. If anything, I think you could write a book about that whole story. It was so interesting to hear. Funnily enough, the fourth monkey, thank you so much for sending that comment in, because that is going to lead into my next question. He says, I love the coffee book. The coffee table. I have a copy signed by Kieran. Very cool.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah, I guess that's a great segue to kind of lean into what have you been working on since we talked, which is another project, the coffee table, which I remember you talking about last year. Can you tell us a little bit more about that project?
Yeah, so that's another weird coincidence. Kieran, the writer for the coffee table, was working in Quality Comics, and we hadn't really talked or known each other, but I had a book from Bad Harvey in there, and maybe a poster as well. And he basically said, hey, look, I got a script. I'm a writer. You're an artist. Like, can I like give you my script? And I was like, sure. I wasn't really, I was like, you know, people will say that, like, I'll give you the script. I'm like, okay, I'll read it. Yeah, whatever. And usually they're great. But this one was spectacular. I mean, I read it on the way home on the train, and I was like, I got to hook up with this guy and we got to do some work. And that was another, at that stage, like, I was doing Bad Harvey, but, you know, that kind of ended, and I was like, let's just do, as people that hadn't really done our own books, like, let's just put our heads together and like try and do something that in a genre that we both enjoy, which is kind of like, we're both like really into like image comics and like the quirkiness of that world, which he absolutely loves. So Coffee Table, yeah, I mean, that's been a long time coming, and that was probably like 2021. So that's a long time ago.
Yep.
This is kind of something we've both been working on for a long time. It's quite a large project. It's about 100 pages. And it's kind of something we've been doing in our spare time, although recently this year, the past year, I should say, we've been kind of trying to get it finished, which we've been pretty successful in doing. But yeah, Coffee Table is a book that's like it's about two roommates, like slacker roommates, who realize their coffee table, if they put a certain type of coffee on it, it disappears and $100 note appears. And it's kind of like a lot of the trouble they get into with that, but also about like, what is the mystery behind this coffee table, and like, you know, that sort of aspect as well. So yeah,
Yeah, it was
it's
so
funny
interesting.
seeing the pages, yeah, because I did these, maybe the pages that are showing up here, I did maybe I did that in 2021. So to me, it's very strange to look at that long ago, pages I did that long ago, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been so interesting for me to see that particular project, the coffee table, from what we spoke about last year to now seeing it like it is now. There's been a huge development with that. And it was such an interesting story as well, like being able to read through it now. It's such an interesting concept. So I commend Kieran on his writing. It seems like a really interesting story. And you've definitely conveyed it really well. Like your artwork is just phenomenal, and I'm pretty sure I said that last time too.
Thank you.
And I guess it kind of just goes to show like your process in which you were talking about before. And I also wanted to ask whether or not, now this is one of my favorite questions as well, I like to ask particularly artists, is how they overcome creative block, because I'm sure everyone kind of comes to that at some point in their career. And it's always really interesting to see how people deal with it in their own ways. So do you have a strategy to overcome it at all?
Yeah, there's kind of two answers to this one. I think on one hand, I like try to, I call it like I think I heard this from someone, I didn't make this up, but getting up and like just looking at a comic you like. When I was first starting out, that was a bit more like intense. Like I used to like have certain comics, and I used to like basically read them before bed and then like fall asleep, and they would be in my bed. I was like just trying to like get something to stay. But I call it like getting my vitamins in. So just waking up, or when I'm on a lunch break, looking through Pinterest, or just grabbing a comic and just like looking through it, enjoying it, and then like putting it away. And I feel like that kind of like keeps me motivated, and like looking at things that I like, I guess, is important to me. And actually, no, there is a really good answer to this. My attitude is I try and find the hook into the drawing, whatever I'm drawing, whether it's a page or a panel or whatever scene or setting or person. Like, what is the interesting part of this drawing? Like, what do I find? What could be fun about this drawing? And like really latch onto that, and then kind of like, I guess, nurture that. That's been really helpful, and I think it's super useful just in general. I mean, drawing has been just amazing for my life in general. Like little strategies I picked up from drawing that I can like apply to other things. But that's probably a big one. Just like I try and find just what's the fun little thing. It might just be one little like line. I'm like, okay, this is cool. Well, that's an interesting shape. Or so that's probably the real like gold standard question. But also the other question is like, if I'm on deadlines, I don't have a choice. I look at my bank account, or I look at like a contract, and I'm like, I got to get this done, and I can't really not do it.
Yeah.
And I'm getting better at. I'm probably not the best at managing my time across like large projects and big projects. I think that's something you get good at. I think like sitting down and drawing every day for like long hours is kind of something that's a skill in of itself. Like how do you not just like screw this, I'm just going to go do something else. Like, how do you just literally sit down and draw for those long hours? And I think that's like a tolerance you build up. That's how I think about it. But yes, a lot of the times I just don't have a choice. I'll unfortunately do stay up all night to finish things, which isn't good. I don't recommend I try to do less of that. I'm trying to do more of the first answer and less of the second
Yeah.
answer. I guess that's probably
It's always
a good
interesting.
question.
Yeah, I always like asking it because I think there's a lot you can learn from other people's ways of doing things, I guess, or habits.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting to see both perspectives. Like, obviously, as a professional, you do have contracts to adhere to. So I definitely understand that. But at the same time, it's like, how do you balance like the mental well-being as well? Because, you know, it is quite taxing sitting there and drawing day in, day out. I guess enough with the heavy. I know that recently you attended PCAF. And for those who don't know what PCAF is, it is the Perth Comic Arts Festival, I believe, which I have been wanting to attend, but every time I go to apply, I miss out on the applications. So can you tell us?
I'm going to remind you. I will remind you for next year.
Please do, because
I'll remind you multiple times.
Tell us what your experience was this year.
Yeah, look, I mean, Perth Comic Arts Festival, it's a great festival. It's a comics festival, which, and I love those larger festivals, I guess, or conventions, I should say. But they're not just comics. And there's something to be said about a grassroots local festival for comics. There's a passion for comics there, and people go there for comics, which, I used to think that isn't that a nice thing? Like, people go there for comics, but I've actually noticed over the years that I've gone and speaking to people, they actually kind of make more money. I don't know if I could say this, but I think anecdotally, I think if you're running a booth and you're selling comics, you might actually do better at a festival like that than some of the larger festivals, because people go there for comics. You won't get people walking up and being like, "Oh, what's this?" Like, I'm here for other things. So that's been really good. So it's really good to like see that enthusiasm on both sides. So like artists who are like selling comics and people who are coming in. Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful festival. It's at the State Library, which is like a huge place to have that event. And it's across 2 days. I think what's interesting about PCAF is it's across 2 days, right? Like, the first day is like an academy. I guess it's an academy day, I think they call it. But it's like an industry day. So, anyone can come. But really, like, there's talks and like kind of networking opportunities for like creators. So I think that's something that I love about PCAF that, I think is unique in a way, where it's like, yeah, you can listen to creators from anywhere in Australia come visit and like talk about their experiences and like meet people. I think meeting people, I mean, the comics industry in Australia everybody's really awesome that I've met, and it's like great like meeting people. But that's what I love about PCAF. This year was really good, really successful. I was a bit like working up until the day. So I was like kind of really tired, but I didn't really do too much legwork in terms of like manning booths and stuff, which is always good. I kind of was able to enjoy it and walk around a little bit. But yeah, PCAF is great. Like, seriously, come to PCAF. Like, it's really good. And Perth is awesome. Like, Perth gets a lot of. Perth is kind of like maybe has a chip on its shoulder, but I don't know. I like Perth. I think Perth is nice. And there is a really strong local community that kind of like coalesces around PCAF. PCAF is like kind of like the hub, but it also allows like the community to revolve around the planning and are you going to PCAF? It actually is kind of like centralized or maybe like brought people together in a cool way.
Awesome.
And I know that I spoke to some people who are trying to take what is being done at places like PCAF and Paper Cuts and kind of like bring it to over east, which is an exciting prospect. Like having more of these like local events around, which I'd love to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and Yeah, like
Yeah.
speaking from paper cuts, I guess like a lot of people kind of compare Adelaide, which is where I'm from, for those who don't know, and Perth, is that I hear a lot of like similarities between the two cities. And now that there's a similarity between PCAF and paper cuts, shout out to Owen. I know that Owen, one of the organizers of paper cuts, was at PCAF this year.
Yes, yeah.
Great to see those two festivals starting to like really like I guess grow bigger and bigger every year. So it's always good to hear what's going on around the country in different states. And one day I will be there at PCAF and I'll be able to meet you in person.
Yeah,
After all
that'd be
these
awesome.
talking about your projects, I would love to see it in person. So I
Yeah,
guess
that'd be great.
stemming off from that as well. I asked a lot about like who has been big influences in your journey, your career. But I want to know what you wish someone had told you before you started your journey, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, probably. I mean, I drew a lot as a kid, so I mean, as a kid, I just wanted to be like working comics and do that. I guess I'm trying to think like, do I want to frame this as like, what would I want kid me to hear? But maybe I'll say like around like 2017. I'll be honest, I kind of dropped out of uni. I was like, I'm gonna do comics, and like nobody's thought it was a good idea. And people told me as much, and that's fine. I mean, that's their opinion. But yeah, maybe I would say I wish someone had said like, yeah, like it's doable. Or there is something that I learnt. It took me a little bit of time to learn, but my thinking is, drawing comics, like there's so many things involved in drawing comics that you can actually apply to other things. So I do cartooning. I've done illustration for magazines and other things, other projects, and it's like, yeah, you can there's a lot of foundational ability that, aspects that you can just, and like storytelling as well, like that you can use for other things. And my thing was, I wanted to do comics, but now I'm just like, I want to be an artist. So like, I'll do lots of different things. I'm like trying to broaden my scope, and I can come back and do comics. And so I guess, yeah, maybe like, I wish someone had said, yeah, look, learn this basic craft, and you'll be able to use it for a lot of different things. And that's been something I've done the last year or two, which has been really successful. And something to be said about how hard comics is. Like other illustrators that don't come from comics, like maybe they can't do comics because it's like that. It is that intense, and everybody who makes comics, I mean, we all make comics here in this community at ComX, and it's like, yeah, it's really hard. But now I'm in a greater ecosystem of illustrators, and it's like, yeah, I got a lot of strengths from that people don't have. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
don't be afraid to like try other things, just like outside adjacent to comics, because I think there's a bit of overlap, and you can learn things that you can put into comics. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think I would agree with that as well. I mean, as someone who's currently doing a degree in design, which is a little bit backwards, some people maybe come into comics from design. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's one. But going from comics into design, there has been so much that I can apply from the layout and structure of comics to apply into so many different things, digital, print, all kinds of things of design. And it has helped me so much. If anything, it's given me a leg up. So I would definitely, agree wholeheartedly with that. There is so much you can apply from comics.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I guess we're kind of getting onto the tail ends of the interview. Thanks again for all your time. But these are kind of like the really hard-hitting questions that I love to ask. And I think a lot of people get a lot out of it. And that is, what do you think the Aussie indie comics scene needs more of?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Look, I just think it just needs to keep growing. I think and I think that it is growing. I think, yeah, just try and put out the good work. If people keep putting out good work, it'll just keep snowballing, and it'll bring more younger people in, and then there'll be more talent, and it'll just keep snowballing. And I think we haven't really reached the critical mass of like how large the community is, and things that are coming out. But I think we'll get there eventually. I guess the other thing is I'm kind of over talking about why the industry in Australia is maybe isn't successful, or isn't where it should be. I kind of over those questions, those conversations. I kind of see them as negative conversations. It's oh, this is why this doesn't work, and I'm like, I don't know how helpful those kind of conversations are. I think it's just let's all just be super positive and keep making comments and keep highlighting your show. I think why I'm such a fan of ComX and you guys is because you actually take a positive, you actually do something positive in your actions. It's yeah, you highlight comic artists, or highlight, sell comics, and put people together that would never meet, right? That, so yeah, that's kind of my rambling about the Australian industry. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that is definitely true. I think if we want more positive things, then why not highlight the positive things that are already there and let that snowball and do its own thing? On the flip side of that, what do you think our scene does well at already?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of projects that really are Australian, and you maybe not consciously leverage that, but they are just from Australians that are comfortable being Australian, I guess. And there's a lot of projects that I love because they are just Australian, and they're not afraid to. They're not pretending to be American comics, I think that's important as well. Maybe that's where the industry goes more into, because I think there's a lot of value in those to people that live here, but also maybe other people across the world want to read that stuff. I don't know. It's just a guess, maybe. I don't know. It's just fun projects that are Australian. I think it's awesome. That maybe European comics I love, but I don't know. They'll do a Western, and I'm yeah. You know what I mean? It's I don't know. It's maybe I'm not getting across my point, but yeah, there's a lot of Australian comics that are just so Australian that you can just feel it feels good, and
Yeah.
And maybe they're not conscious, they're just Australian. Yeah, it's really good to see and embrace that aspect to it. Let's have Australian characters and things set in the past and things like that. It's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a huge credit to you, because I think it's wonderful to see more Indigenous representation in our comics as well. So a huge applause to you. I think what you're doing is fantastic. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you as well. My last and final question is, where can we find this upcoming book, and where can we also find the coffee table as well? Where can we find your work?
Yeah, so actually, I think there was a link, Sis, that I sent. It was a pre-order for the Dreamwalker issue 1. So there is a pre-order link website at the moment, and you'll be able to get that when it comes out, probably in most comic book shops, at least in every state, I would say. I don't know for sure. At the very least, you'll be able to buy it online as well. So that's, and if you just go to the Indigiverse website, so that's set to come out this month. I've got a few things. I'm working on the cover at the moment, which is interesting, that process, but that's going to be really good, I hope. In terms of coffee table, That one has a little bit more complicated journey, I think, still to go. Although we have put out limited copies at PCAF and other festivals, I think we're going to pitch it to publishers in general and see where it goes. We are going to pitch it to Image, so that might be fun to talk about, whether that's successful or not. And just other publishers, whatever publisher, let's try that way first, because there might be something to this book that people might like, that might have a broader appeal. And then, depending on how that goes, that'll decide how the book comes out. But we're totally happy to self-publish at the end of the day. But yeah, we'll probably update on that journey, because I think it'll be interesting. Let's just try and apply to publishers within their application, which is all different, and there are limitations there. So that'll be fun. We'll give that a go. Why not?
Absolutely. And I wish you all the best as well for how that goes. I'll definitely be watching, as I have been in the last year. So I'll be looking out for those updates for sure. Otherwise, Chris, that concludes my interview for you tonight. Thank you so much for your time. Otherwise,
thank you so much.
That's all good. Sis, do we have any other final announcements that you want to bookend our show with tonight?
The main one is like the video, if that would be great. Share it with your friends so more people get to watch this and get to know a little bit more about Chris and his projects. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That helps us bring out more of this content and help more creators get the word out about themselves. So that would be awesome.
Absolutely. Otherwise, thank you so much to everyone who's watched, and thank you again, Chris, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you and catch up on everything that you've been doing in the last year. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love coming on the show. I'll try and come on at least a few more times this year, I reckon, because I just love it so much. And again, what you guys do is so amazing. If you're here supporting and still watching after me talking so much, thank you. You guys are awesome, seriously. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, guys. And we'll tune in 2 weeks. Otherwise, catch all the other shows during the week as well. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you later.
Night. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Check out ComX.cx for all things ComX and find out what ComX is all about. We hope you enjoyed the show.